SG Reads.
Hello fellow travelers, my name is SG and welcome to the channel. Today I'll be doing a quick reading of Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart. It is a very good one, it's one of the best, one of his classics. And yeah, I really wanted to read it, I was very interested in it. Just remember, all this is fiction, none of it's real. It is something that is interesting and has a lot of details in it. So I will give you kind of a trigger warning, I guess, or maybe just a warning period. So if you're not into this kind of thing, please look at one of my other videos, maybe poetry. Those are good. But anyway, if you like this content, please leave a like, comment, subscribe down below. Yeah, let's get started, shall we? True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing, acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken, and observe how healthily, how calmly I could tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived it haunted me day and night. Object there was none, passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was his eye. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye, with a film over it. Whenever I fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now, this is the point you fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing, but you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation. I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it oh so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put it in the dark lantern, all closed so that no light shone out, and then I thrust it in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Would a madman have been so wise at this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. Oh, so cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it, just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye, and that I did for 7 long nights, every night just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning, when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber, and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a heavy tone, and inquiring how he had passed the night. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed, to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph. To think that there I was, opening the door, little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and he not even... And perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. Now, you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch, with a thick darkness, for the shutters were close fastened through fear of robbers, and so I knew that he could not see the opening of that door, and I kept pushing it on steadily. I had my head in, and was about to open the lantern, when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in the bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quiet still, and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed listening. just as I have done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently, I heard a slight groan. I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh no! It was a low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul and overcharged with awe. I knew that sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it has welled up from my own bosom, deepening when its dreadful echo, the terror that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt, and pitied him. Although I chuckled at heart, I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise, and when he turned in the bed, his fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying it to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor," or "It is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp." Yes, he had been trying to comfort himself with the suppositions, but he had found all in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him, and enveloped the victim, and it was mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So, I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, upon a length, a little single dim ray, like the thread of the spider, shot out from the crevice of the full upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open. I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow of my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had distracted the ray as it be instinct precisely upon the damned spot. And now have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the senses? Now, I say, there came to my eyes a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury, at the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet, I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. I grew quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder. I say louder every minute. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous. So I am. And now, at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Yet for some minutes longer, I refrained and stood still. But the beating grew louder. I thought the heart must burst, and now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eyes would trouble me no more. Yet still you think me mad. You will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head, the arms, and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber, and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught all. When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bells sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with light heart, for what have I to now fear? There entered 3 men, who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man, I mentioned, was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chambers. I showed them his treasures, secure and undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale, and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. But still they sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of these feelings. But it continued and gained definitiveness. Until at length I found that the noise was not within my ears. No, I doubt I now grow very pale. But I talked more fluently, and with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound of a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quietly, more vehemently, and the noise steadily increased. I rose and argued about trifles, in a high key with a violent gesturiousness, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observation of the men. But the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore. I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting, and grated it upon the boards. But the noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder, 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 and still the men chattered pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, they heard, they suspect, they knew. They were making a mockery of my honor. This I thought, and this I think, but anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I would scream or die. And now again, hark! Louder, 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 louder! Villains! I shrieked. Disassemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here! Here! It is the beating of his hideous heart. Alright, now that we've read the story, let's talk about it, shall we? In this one, in Edgar Allan Poe's Telltale Heart, this is many ways that one could take this now. Such as maybe mental illness, maybe the assistant was going through something that he wasn't really telling anybody. They say he was suffering from madness, which could be a number of things. It could have been a series of things. I'm not a professional, I can't tell you, but you could definitely tell he was undergoing some sort of disorder. That he was hearing things, imagining things. And that in some way, in some sense, being against his boss made sense to him. And that even when the old man, his boss, was gone, it didn't fix anything. It still persisted. Just because he got rid of the physical issue doesn't mean he got rid of the main issue. It was still going to bother him. It was still bothering him now. He thought this was a beating of the old man's heart, but really it was just something that had been constantly bothering him for the past few years, it seems. Because even then he said that it was the creaking of the house that really got him before. And now that he realized he honed in on this old man and that eye of his, he felt that that was the main thing that was bothering him. That was his kind of, I guess you could say, issue. But it wasn't, because he even says that the old man had been nothing but kind to him. He was almost like a father to him. Maybe he was his father. We don't really know that much about them. But we could tell that whatever this young man, this assistant, was going through was very internal, not external. You could tell that it was something bothering him deep inside. Just gave a quick glimpse into his mind. This short story gives you the idea that he's talking into an interrogator, that he's talking to the police, describing what had happened, why he did it, or maybe he's even in court describing what happened, hoping that people can understand that he's not crazy, he just understands things a little better than most, but not knowing that he was damning himself in the situation at hand. Yes, he wasn't well, maybe not crazy, but he wasn't well, he was sick, and just could not get help, or maybe felt like he couldn't get help. But that's just my interpretation of this story. If you guys have a different one, please leave it down in the comment section. Like I said, there are many ways that you could take Edgar Allan Poe's works. And Edgar Allan Poe himself said, none of them are wrong. You shouldn't force feed an answer to people. Well, I guess I am, but he said that you should be able to discern the meaning yourself and come up with an educated answer yourself. Because people are smart, and I would really like to hear what you say. So please, if you have an opinion or anything else, please leave it in the comment section. Well, I hope you guys liked this short story today. Please continue to, next week we'll be doing another thing for reading, but we'll see if you have any suggestions. Leave it down in the comment section. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy it, and see you guys next time.